All right, so this video is all about new homes here in Temecula, California. We're going to talk about the new incentives that are out there, what some of these different home builders are offering. We're going to talk about some of the hidden costs and some things that you might not think about, and the builder definitely won't tell you about if you are going to buy a new home. And then we're going to talk about some of the brand new communities that are coming. There's not a lot of information about these online, really most anywhere. So I think this will be some really good info. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hey guys, hey again, my name is Justin Short. I'm a realtor and team leader with the Short Real Estate team here at Keller Williams in Temecula, California. And this video is all about the new build communities that are currently going on here in Temecula. We're going to talk about some of the new incentive programs that are out there, which have changed quite a bit, with the market conditions and kind of what's been going on the last year and really the last few months. So there's a lot of incentives that are out there. We're also going to talk a little bit about some of the hidden costs and maybe some things that you guys aren't thinking about and probably aren't going to be discussed a ton with the builder as far as some high ticket items that you got to think about if you are going to buy a new build. And then you are also going to talk about some of the new up and coming communities. So these are communities they have not released yet. There is very, very little information online about them, if any at all. So hopefully I think it'll be really good information if you are looking at new homes or thinking about buying a new home. But before I get into all the information, if you are liking real estate videos like this, please do me a favor, please hit like, please hit subscribe. Obviously it helps me, it helps my channel as I try to continue to grow it. And we do have new videos that we put out there each and every week. So all about really the surrounding areas. So Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, just kind of the Southwest Riverside area. It's all kind of local location based stuff. So if you go ahead and subscribe if that's something you want to see more of. And then if you guys have any real estate questions, of course, I'd love to hear from you. So you can feel free to reach out. I am obviously a full-time real estate agent. That's how I earn a living. So would love to help you and your family with your real estate search if we can do anything. Or if not, I'm happy to at least point you in the right direction. People reach out all the time. Happy to make some recommendations, point them in the right area, recommend one part of town over another. So hopefully would love to hear from you. You're gonna see my information either down below or at the end of the video, my cell phone and my email. So you can feel free, you can call, you can text, you can email me. That's my personal cell phone. So feel free to reach out and I'll make sure to get back to you. So cool. All right, so we're going to talk about new builds. And again, this video is really primarily for the city of Temecula. So I guess the disclaimer up front is there's really not a ton of new build communities that are currently going on in Temecula. And the reason for that is Temecula, it started, most of the city was being built really in more like the mid 90s to like mid 2000s. So like 95 to like 2005. There are new builds that have still been, new communities that are going in after that, 2010, 12, 15, 20, and there are still new construction communities still happening. But just because the area has gotten so built out, there's really just not that much space left in the city. There's not a ton of new construction. But there are a few, we're going to talk about those, and there are some more coming over the next few years. But if you are looking for a new build, a lot of people do end up looking at some of the surrounding cities because although Temecula only has a few, Murrieta has a really good amount. There's just a lot more open land, right? There's a lot more undeveloped space. Menifee has a ton. Lake Elsinore, there's a ton, like there's just a ton it's a huge city. There's a lot of new construction going on. And then Winchester has a bunch of new construction that's going on as well. So if you are set on buying a new home, which there's a lot of positives to that, Temecula, it's a great location, and we'll talk about kind of some of what's going on, but you do want to take a look and consider some of those other areas if you really want to get into a new build. If you're all familiar with the area, or if you've seen any of my other videos, Temecula is the most expensive of those cities. So it's a great area. That's where I live, right? I think it's a great place, but you got to find the right fit for you. And if you are looking at new builds and you want to stick with the new construction community, you might want to look at some of those other areas as well. So cool. All right. So first thing we're talking about is incentives. So if you haven't been paying a ton of attention to the real estate market, I think most people have a general idea, like early 2020s, around COVID, the real estate market really took off, right? It was going crazy. Homes were selling super, super fast. You put your home out there and it would sell with 20 offers, way above list price, etc. I think people realize that interest rates have gone up substantially over the last couple of years. So because of that, that has really affected affordability. So if you're going to get a mortgage, the mortgage payment you pay today is much higher than it would have been, say, 4 years ago because of where the rates are, right? So with that, we've definitely seen a slowdown in the real estate market, and so much so over the last, it's probably about 2 years now, we've really kind of seen more of a flat line in the real estate market. So a lot of people thought we might see like this big real estate crash, like home prices were going to crumble. That has not been the case at all, but we've really just been in a very steady, balanced market between buyers and sellers. Homes selling in about 30 days for, about as much as the neighbor sold for a year ago, that type of thing. And over the last, this is now summer 2025, right? And so over the last few months, from that kind of that middling balanced market, we have seen more of a slowdown for sure. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, right? I may probably can get more information from other places about that, but there's a ton of things going on in the world, right? The affordability, interest rates being where they are, they've been kind of that mid 6s to 7% range for the last couple of years, and there's just a lot of economic challenges, struggles, uncertainty that's out there that have really caused the market to slow down, caused a lot of buyers to go back on their heels. And there's a lot of sellers that right now are having a little bit of a hard time selling their homes. So just on resale market homes, we are seeing homes, instead of selling in about 30 days, they are now taking about 60, some closer to 90 days. We're seeing a lot more price reductions. We haven't really seen too much of an actual cut in your average sales price, but I think we're kind of at that point where you're going to start seeing some of those stats come up where your average sales price is going to start to dwindle a little bit. Is it coming down 100K for your average house? No. Our prices may be down 10 grand, 15, 20. Yeah, I think that's probably pretty realistic. I have a lot of clients that I'm helping, sell their home that are having a discount and make concessions, and I'm having buyers that I think are getting pretty good deals on homes, right? Can write some aggressive offers, can get a home that's been sitting on the market 100 days and negotiate down the price pretty good and get what I would say to be a pretty good deal. So it's definitely a changing market. So that's a long-winded, kind of intro here to as the real estate market has changed, especially over the last couple months, there are these new build communities that are out here and other areas as well. But when they are selling not just one home, right? They're trying to sell a few hundred homes, few hundred condos, and they have a lot of inventory they need to sell. These are businesses, they're investments, they have to sell them, and so deciding to keep it and rent it out is not a problem. Not on the table. They're gonna have to sell it. So because of that, when you see a little bit of a real estate market slowdown like this, and it's more pronounced over the last 60 days, these new build communities that are carrying all this inventory, they have homes that are being constructed each and every day that they have to sell, they start offering more and more incentives. And that's really what we've seen. So right now, there are really only 3 new build communities that are going on within the city of Temecula. We have the first one that we'll talk about is by Meritage Homes. That's the Prado community. And it's kind of funny because I can see it like literally right behind my window here. They're like building them very, very close to where my office is, right on the other side of the freeway. But it's a very nice community. It's kind of a second portion. Meritage built another community like half a block down the street. This is the newer one. Some people think they're single family homes, but they are actually detached condos. But they're detached condos very, very close to Winchester Road, right on the border of Temecula and Murrieta. They're going to be priced anywhere from about $600,000 to like the mid 7s, depending on the size and all that type of stuff. But they have a ton of incentives that they're offering right now. And it's because they're having a hard time selling their homes and things are starting to sit, and they got to get them sold. So this is definitely the most incentives that I have ever seen on a new build here locally at least. So on those homes, we're seeing closing cost incentives from the builders to up to $28,000. So which is going to be, basically it's going to cover you as a buyer. You're going to get all your closing costs covered. Probably can use some of that money towards some type of a rate buy down. So to get maybe instead of a 6.5% rate, maybe you can buy it down to 5.5%, for the next 30 years or 15 years with an adjustable or whatever the terms are. But that's a ton of money that they're putting out there towards closing costs. In addition to that, they are also throwing in window coverings, so blinds that are going to be included. Usually that is something that you would pay for extra out of your pocket after you close. They're also upgrading appliances, so upgraded appliances to like more of a higher end package. I think they're using GE, but I'd have to double check. But more, so that's incentives. They're going to spend more money on appliances to include them. I think they're including the fridge, washer, and dryer too, which it's $4,000 or $5,000 to someone to buy a brand new one. So those are gonna that's a incentive as well. And what I think is the biggest one, and which is the least common that I have not seen before, is Meritage. If you're buying one of these homes, they are also including backyard landscaping. So that is something, when you go to buy a new home, you're gonna buy if you have a backyard, so it's not a condo, right? You have, basically it's a piece of dirt, right? And you're gonna have a backyard that you're gonna have to develop, and that costs a lot of money. So for hardscaping and landscaping, I mean, these are detached condos, so they're not the hugest lots in the world by any means, but still, someone is easily gonna come in there and spend $10, $15, $20, $25,000 easily to do your hardscaping and landscaping. So the fact that the builder is going to cover this, that's a big plus. So I think that's a ton of incentive. So if you are looking for something, they're a little bit tighter, your detached condos, so not like a true single family home, but up to $28,000 in closing costs, window coverings, upgrade appliances, and backyard landscaping. So that's a ton that they're offering. Really, it's over $50,000 in upgrades. It's when I'm doing the math. So that's a big thing. The second community, the second and third, are both a part of Summers Bend. So if you're not familiar with Summers Bend, it's this big master plan community in Temecula. It's kind of on the border of wine country, over off Butterfield Stage. I'm sure you can pull it up on the Google. But most of the community is all sold out. So they have all types of homes from condos to detached condos to townhomes, small single-family homes, big single-family homes, big huge lots, big almost semi-custom half-acre estates, and kind of everything in between. 55 plus, big huge community. I think there's going to be almost 2,000 homes when it's all said and done, right? But most of that is pretty much all sold out, with the exception of 2 areas, and so those 2 areas are still available, and you're starting to see some incentives, at least on one of them. So what is available in Summers Bend are the condos. So that's the discovery community, they call it. So it's the attached condos in Summers Bend, because they're condos. You have a low price point. They're going to start in the low 500,000s, and right now they're offering a pretty good incentive as far as a rate buy down. So they're offering interest rate at 4.99 fixed for the next 30 years. So that's pretty good incentive. They also do have some closing cost incentives that they offer as well. It's more of a case-by-case scenario, but I've had a couple clients. I know of people who have actually even placed an offer on these and be able to get a discount price-wise as well. So that's pretty significant. And then the third community is also in Summers Bend. It's kind of on the flip side of things, so it is not that entry-level pricing. It is their luxury, ultra high-end. It's that they call it the Shawwood community. So really, they're like half-acre properties, super cool homes, all these really cool high-end finishes, super high ceilings, prep kitchens, and all types of really cool stuff. I think the smallest one there is like 3,500 square feet, and then they go up to somewhere in that 5,000 square foot range. They are totally opposite end of the price point. They are super high end for Temecula. Really, to get a home in Shawwood, you're really going in right at the $2 million area and up. So anywhere from $2 to probably $2.6 million you're going to end up spending on a new build. They do offer, they do advertise some lower price points, but by the time you add options and stuff, it's probably not going to be realistic. Those do not have the same type of incentives, at least that I was able to see. They do have some closing costs, things that they're going to help with and whatnot, but it's a different market, right? It's going to be a different buyer, and they don't have all those incentives that I just rattled off on the others. So those are the 3 new build communities that are currently going on in Temecula. Like I said, that first one by Meritage has a ton of incentives. You definitely have some good ones going at the other condos in Summers Bend, and then the high end, and not so much, but they are still going in out there. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is if you are going to buy a new build home, there are a lot of those what I would call hidden costs and things you might not necessarily think about that you're going to have to spend money on, and this is something you really want to think about and really know about ahead of time. And as someone that I've helped a lot of clients buy new build homes. I have personally bought a couple myself, and there are even just a lot of my neighbors, that they kind of went through this whole move-in process with me. And once they got in, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know. I didn't really think about this. I didn't really think about these costs." So this is really something that if you are going to buy a home, you really want to think about and just make sure you are prepared for it and make sure that you know what to expect. So I think a lot of times, and I get this comment from clients, and I think maybe people from watching these videos, they might think that I am anti-new home. That is not the case. I think new builds are really, really great. I have personally bought 2 new build homes over the last 6 years. I think they can be a really good option for people, but you just really got to go know what you're getting into. And a lot of times people just don't realize, some of the cost that they are going to open themselves up to that they're not necessarily thinking about. So number one is when you buy a new build, there are some true hard costs into the actual house itself that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. So when you buy a house, and let's say it's kind of your typical tract home, let's say it's 7,000 square foot lot, you have this pretty good sized backyard, right? Well, when you buy that new build and you move in from that day, it is a piece of dirt out in the backyard. And when you have all that dirt, you're gonna have to hardscape it, you're gonna have to landscape it. A lot of times the HOA will even have certain time periods that they mandate that you do your projects in. For example, the community that I live in, they told us that you have to start your project within 90 days. For someone, if you just bought a $700, $800, $900 million home, you spend a lot of money on that, right? There's a lot of costs, a lot of moving costs and everything. And then to have to immediately fork out a big chunk of money to do the backyard, that's something a lot of people don't think about. And that's kind of what I was mentioning earlier. A lot of even my neighbors, from where I live now, I would say probably 20% of them like, "Oh, I didn't really think about doing the backyard. It wasn't really something I ever wrapped my head around." And it is such a big cost that a lot of people do not think about it. And really, with a typical tract home, the cost that I see that most people are paying to hardscape and landscape their backyard is anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000. And if you want to do anything fancy, like put a pool in, that's easily going to add an extra, $80, $90, $100,000, super, super quick. So these are not quick projects. Like I said, most are going to be between 20 to 50K that they're going to put in the backyard, and just something that you really want to think about. So that's number one, and that's really the biggest cost. The second one that I would mention are window coverings. So when you move into a new build, they don't come with any blinds typically, 99% of the time. So there's no blinds, there's no window coverings, there's no shutters, anything like that. Say you buy a big 3,000 square foot home, there's a lot of windows that are in there, and there's probably more than you think. And so you're gonna have to pay to hang up blinds. And so many people like, the shutters or like some type of automated, window covering system. Well, that's gonna cost a lot of money. So the average home, if you're gonna put, let's say, shutters in, which are obviously it's higher end, right? It's more expensive, probably the most expensive way you can do it. But they're gonna spend between $8,000 to $10,000 is what I see a lot of my clients spend. So again, that's another cost you're going to have to think about. The third one would be paint. Although when you move in, you do get a coat of paint from the builder. It is white, which at least is popular nowadays, but it's white, but it is a super, super thin, almost chalky, flat paint. So I just went through in my house, you move in, especially if you have kids, they're touching the walls. You can't really clean the wall. If they scuff and they rub their elbows and they rub their jackets and balls and shoes, all that shows, it marks up the walls, it dings them up. And after a few months of that, it is super, super frustrating to live with. So you're gonna need to paint the inside of the house. And the cost to do that, again, for most people, it depends. If you're gonna do it yourself, you might be able to do it for a couple $1,000. And if you're gonna hire someone, it might be $4,000 to $6,000, right? So it's gonna be a pretty significant cost there. And then just in addition to that, there are a lot of little details that people don't necessarily think about. So say if you want some of these, nicer finishing features, like some certain light fixtures, or barn doors, or built-in cabinets, or built-in shelving, or feature walls in your bedroom, or anything like that, just know that's all going to cost money. And when you buy a new build, it's all none of that exists. So it's all just your base white paint that doesn't have much really any design to it, anything like that. And just know, if you walk through your typical home, you can typically see a lot of those little projects, and just know somebody paid money for that, somebody built that themselves, somebody did those things, and there's just a lot of costs that people don't necessarily think about. So I would say those are like the physical costs to the house. In addition to that, the other things that I wanted to mention are high property taxes. So typically when you go to, let's say you're going to buy your normal home here in Riverside County, you're going to have your tax rate is right about 1.15% is going to be your tax rate. And if you're going to buy a new build, that tax rate is typically going to be anywhere from about 1.8 to north of 2%. So it doesn't necessarily sound like such a big deal. So it's an extra 1% or so in property tax. But if you're going to buy, it's called an $800,000 home, that extra 1% can be an extra $8,000 a year that you're going to pay in property tax. So that is super, super significant. That's an extra, $700 a month or so. So that's a big deal. And that is something the builder will tell you about, but when you hear that number, it doesn't necessarily sound too high. So you really got to think about, okay, what does that cost me on a yearly basis? How do those property taxes affect me? And how does those property tax affect what I pay per month, especially if you're going to impound them, put them on your mortgage. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is solar. If you don't know, it is California state law that any new construction home now must come with solar panels. And so when you see these homes that are advertised, that's even the communities that we just talked about, let's say it's one of these detached condos for $650,000, right? They're going to advertise that, and on the sign, that's your sales price. There's a little fine print there that says this price does not include solar, and you must purchase or lease solar on top of that. So when you buy a new build, those prices do not include the solar panels. So you're going to buy them in addition to the sales price for usually anywhere from it could be anywhere from $9,000 to $13,000 is what I see is most common. So you can add that into your mortgage, you can pay cash for it, or you can turn around and you can lease it. Either way, you're going to have an electric bill, right? So changing your electric bill to a solar bill isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of pluses to that, but that is a cost that really almost nobody thinks about unless you've bought a new construction home in the past. So anytime you see those advertised sales price, at least in California, they do not include solar panels. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the new construction homes that are coming to the city of Temecula soon. And this is a little hard to go over because some of the information is a little vague, and it's not that I don't want to give you the right information, it's just that the builders have not put a ton of detail out there, just kind of some breadcrumbs. But I think there's a lot of information you're not going to hear other places, and hopefully so it's really good information for you guys to know, especially if you are wanting a new construction home here in Temecula. So like I mentioned before, there's very limited new construction communities that are currently going on, but there are 3 that are coming soon to Temecula, and I think they're going to be pretty cool communities and pretty cool additions and some pretty good options for people, especially if you're feeling like there's a lot of great resale options for you that are out there. So number 1 is an addition to the Summers Bend community. So there are actually 3 sections of tract homes that are being added on to the Summers Bend community. So they haven't really officially named it. I don't know if they're just going to call it Summers Bend. I'm calling it Summers Bend Part 2. That's probably not the official term, but this is going to be done by Richmond American Homes. And if I didn't mention it before, I actually live in Summers Bend, so it's something I pay a lot of attention to. I can see right now as I leave my housing tract that they're doing a lot of grading. And so what they're doing is they're setting up three different areas where they're going to be building homes. There are right on the other side, if you pull up a map where Summer's Bend Home Community is, it's going to be right on the other side of Butterfield Stage. So that would be, I guess that's the west side of Butterfield Stage. The first section by Richmond American is going to be smaller homes. Those are going to be about, I guess all the communities, all three, is going to be a total of 135 homes. So it's not a ton of homes they're putting in. But the first one is going to be a little bit smaller, tract homes is what it looks like. They're calling for a total of 106 tract homes that they're going to put in. It looks like the lot sizes are about 3,500 to 4,000 square feet on average. That's the last advertising that I saw. So that's not huge by any means, but they do look to be single family tract homes that are going to be there. In addition to that, just on the other side of the main road, I think that's called Nicholas, but on the other side of the main road there, they're going to have some larger lots. So there's going to be 14 homes that are on quarter-acre lots. So that'd be pretty large homes for a new, pretty large lots for a new tract build. Home nowadays. And then just up the road, so right up Butterfield Stage, right around the corner, there's going to be more the high-end homes, which is going to be another 14 lots that they're going to be releasing. These are going to be half-acre lots, which is really, really huge. I mean, your average tract home in the city is probably about 7,000, 6,500 square feet. So these are going to be north of 20,000 on average. So they're really huge. They're going to be a part of Summers Bend. They're going to be a part of that Summers Bend HOA, the community, all the amenities that are there, the parks, the clubhouses, the community pools, the running trails, all that type of stuff. So since I live there, I think that's pretty cool. It's something I'm excited about. And we'll have to kind of see how the information comes. But it looks like they are grading right now. It looks like by the end of the year should have some more detailed information on what's going on. So if you like the Summers Bend community and maybe missed out on some of the single family homes, that's going to be a really good option for you and something to pay attention to. So I'll definitely keep you guys posted on these videos regarding that. The second community is actually a part of Paseo del Sol. So if you're not familiar with the city, Paseo del Sol is a very large tract home community that has been built in Temecula for quite some time. A lot of the communities started being built, I think it was probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then there was a second newer section that was built right around the 2012, 2013 area. It's located in the southern portion of the city, right off of Temecula Parkway. It's not considered South Temecula, but kind of southern portion of Temecula. And there is a big dirt lot that has been sitting vacant for a really long time. And now the Woodside Homes builder is starting to develop it. They have graded a lot of lots. I guess they've ran into a little bit of some issues with some of the water lines that they're kind of working through, so that's kind of delayed things. But it looks like they are hoping either later this year or early next year, they're going to start being able to move forward with their development. So you're going to see, if you drive by, you see all the lots graded. It looks like it's going to be a good amount of homes that are going to go in, and they are saying that's going to be a part of the Paseo del Sol community. Again, hopefully information later this year or early next year. And the third one is the biggest, and it's probably the one I think most people already know about, but they probably don't have some of these details. So this is the one. There's a big, huge, massive community going in Temecula, around the Old Town area. So if you're not familiar, if you're going down the 15 freeway and you look towards the west, they've been cutting into the hillside. They've been chopping it, chop, chop, chop. And they are now grading for a bunch of homes. It's going to be this big, huge master plan community. I didn't get a count, I didn't see anything about how many they're actually going to have, but they are slated for a grand opening in summer 2026. So that's next year. They're going to have, it's going to be new homes. They talked a little bit about the HOA. There's going to be, it sounds like it's going to be very similar to that Summers Bend community I was telling you about. So they're going to have, your private rec room. They're going to have a community pool. They're going to have parks in the community. They're going to have trails, and they're also saying they're going to be putting in some future roadway improvements, which I thought was kind of interesting. But it's probably because there's not a ton of roads going back to that part of Old Town, so it'll help make the access coming in and out a lot easier. And then one thing I did not know about, I had not heard anything about, but it looks like they are also considering to have, besides the new homes that they're going to be selling, they're also going to have some homes that are for rent as well. So built to rent, if you guys aren't familiar, that's getting more and more popular, throughout the U.S. So it sounds like potential for a builder, one of these tract home builders, to go in, build 100 homes or so, and then just turn around and only have them as rentals. So obviously, I'm a real estate agent, right? I want to buy and sell homes. I don't think that's the greatest idea in the world, and I think a lot of people are kind of down on that, but I'm sure there's a lot of advantages. It's probably a little bit more affordable for people on a monthly expense, so we'll have to see. Maybe it'll end up being a good thing. They did say it's potential. That's not necessarily going to happen. I'm sure we'll have more information over the next 12 months and kind of see how that pans out. So anyways, hopefully that's good information for you guys. I think the info about the new build communities coming, I think, is good. Again, Summer's Bend Part 2, Paseo del Sol add-on, and then you have that new community in Old Town, the Altair community. That's going to be pretty massive and looks to be pretty great. So anyways, feel free to reach out if you guys have any questions. You can call, you can text, you can email me. Hopefully talk to you soon. Thanks.